Hello and welcome to KSB TV. Today with a really special guest, we have Crypto Heartbeat in the green room waiting, and I will just tell you a little bit about the stream today because we have an awesome opportunity to free claim Texas token, and obviously I want to also dive deep into what is the world's first crypto-based endowment token, and that's why I got Crypto Heartbeat here with us today to explain everything. We will walk through the free claim. We will also look into the DApp and the application to really dive into Texas token and learn everything about it. So let's bring up our guest. And how is it going, Crypto Heartbeat?
Hey, but what's up, man? Thanks for having me on, man.
Of course, it's going so good. KSB TV has so much work to do right now. And I obviously wanted to have you on stream to talk about this awesome opportunity today that we have the Texas token doing an airdrop, right? Let's talk about this in a couple of minutes. First, Crypto Heartbeat, I would like to introduce you to the audience. Can you maybe talk a little bit about you, about your YouTube channel, and then also how Texas token came along?
Sure, you bet. And just to give you, I guess, a background on me personally, for the last 22 years, I've worked in the nonprofit space, and that's the charitable organizations in the United States. And I've worked with all kinds of different groups. I started a company back in 2001 at the beginning of really, I got involved in the .com era and then started a company in 2001. And after the towers fell, built a company for the next 10 years into one of the largest and fastest growing fundraising agencies in the US. And I sold and then moved back to my wife's hometown, and you did a lot of consulting from there. And then I found crypto. And it wasn't until literally I saw a TV ad at 2 a.m. in the morning. I couldn't sleep one night, and I saw this ad for this thing called HEX.com. And I couldn't, I thought, oh, this has got to be some network marketing MLM business. I pulled it up on my phone. It was crypto. And I'd been in some crypto, but it wasn't really a part of any investment strategies I had. And I started watching Hexo. Honestly, that's what I started doing, watching Hexo at the end of the day. And, I just really, really appreciated the community. And I put $600 in. I mean, that's just a great example, like nothing in. And of course, I watched it over that period of time. And every day I came home from the office, and my wife, I was telling her, hey, that Hex thing, that crypto thing we're in? I was like, yeah, it's that $600 is like 1,200. And then it's, 2,500 and 5,000 and then 7,500. And then it was 15 grand. And of course, every time my wife would say, that's not real money. That's not real money. And so my daughter turned 16 and we bought her a car. And so it was one of these things where I always say crypto has to prove itself to you. People that don't understand what crypto is and all of that. I'm so thankful that 2 days before big payday, I got into Hex, and it's been the most amazing ride. But when I heard Richard Hart was going to fork Ethereum, that's what got my real attention, because I'm not an OG Hexican. I mean, 2 days before big payday, I wasn't there at the beginning. And so it had to kind of prove itself to me. But when I saw that he was going to create the PulseChain, I was like, this is it. This is the opportunity. And that's when I started Crypto Heartbeat. And I wanted to share a message of the opportunity that I thought that the PulseChain was going to bring. And then, of course, the big inspiration for all of this was when he did the fundraising effort for the SENS Foundation. I had been in fundraising for all this time, and I saw what he did with the SENS Foundation. He said, if you give to the SENS Foundation, this 501c3 organization, we're going to airdrop you tokens. And I thought, this is a brilliant use of crypto for fundraising. And that's really the inspiration for how we did the Texan token. The whole fundraising effort that we did, what we called the donation phase, really went to a nonprofit organization so that we could do token distribution to a community. And we're really at the very end of that whole process. We did 90 days of donation phase, and now we did these 30 days of free claim, and we're in the last 17 hours right now of the free claim.
Exactly, in the last 17 hours. So let's bring up the screen share here. And here you guys can see it. It's 16 hours and 55 more minutes. And I have up texas.cc. Here you can learn everything about Texas token. I've already looked through it. And I think it's really cool that you have this red link here, audit, because if I would ask the first question about Texas token, I thought a lot about it, what I should ask. And obviously, I have to ask about the security. What did you do to make sure that this crypto, a smart contract, is just like Hex, immutable, trustless, and under our high standards of crypto?
Yeah, and that was one of the most important things. And many people know Brandon from Rags to Riches. He is obviously the co-founder with me in the Texan token. And we made the point. We saw a lot of people, because in my YouTube channel, a lot of people came to me with new projects. And all these new projects, I saw some people just had a PowerPoint presentation, some people had an idea, some people had a finished product. And we really decided, and Brandon's the real genius behind this. He said, let's not talk to anyone about what we're doing until we have it completed, no admin keys, completely immutable, and we have an audit complete, have a DEP up on the testnet from day one. And that was really important to us. And so that's what you see there. So for the last, it's been 120 days, we have been completed. We had a full audit done by CertiK, a security audit. There's no admin keys. It's complete DeFi, straight up the best practices of decentralized finance. And so, the point of this is that it really mimics what's called an endowment. And in my work in the last 22 years, I've worked with organizations that have endowments. And if you know about what an endowment is for a nonprofit or charitable organization, it's where a nonprofit has donations that go into an account and they make investments, and that creates investment income. That income covers their operations, and that's their cash flow. And so one of the things that, being in HEX and understanding staking is that if you make a 5555 stake, it is literally locked up for 7.5 years, unless you want to pay the penalty. But we see people creating staking ladders, and then there's derivatives because the inflexibility of that. And so we wanted to create the essence of an endowment, which is the ability that you can scrape your interest at any time with no penalty, so that if you wanted to utilize that interest as cash flow, you could. And so the base rate is 5%, and it pays in Texan tokens. It's an immutable contract. You burn when you stake, and you mint back your rewards. And that's really the great thing about it, is it's an opportunity, an option for the people of Texas, as well as, freedom-loving people across the world, to have an opportunity. And that's, really the background of this is working with the Texas nationalist movement, because this is the first time in the blockchain where there's been a crypto project tied to a political outcome. Because if we're successful in this process of helping the Texas nationalist movement, we will birth a new nation, and it will be the Republic of Texas, the second go round. This will be 2.0 of the Republic of Texas, because we were independent for 9 years back in 1836.
Matt, I want to ask you, how would that endowment empower, for example, the people in Texas to be a libertarian to America, for example? Can we talk about this topic a little bit more before we jump into that? A Texas token will be on PulseChain, right?
Yes.
To enter it right now with the DEP, you have to enter it already on the PulseChain testnet. I think this is really cool. That's why we will definitely go there. But let's talk about how the endowment will help the political movement, because now I see something coming together that I like a lot. Like the standing alone of a state and also crypto. So let's dive into this topic.
Well, and if you think about this, the people of Texas are independent-minded people. We were an independent nation previously, and we actually joined the union. And so, when Texas became a part of the union, we obviously have our own state constitution. In Article 1, Section 2 of the Texas Constitution, it says all political power is retained by the people. It's inherent in the people. And so if there comes a time when you need to change, abolish, you have that opportunity. And so a lot of people don't understand that we're a union of states just like the European Union. It's just people look at the federal government and they think the United States of America is one thing, and it's actually made up of 50 states. And so Texas, as the 9th largest economy in the world currently, Texas is the 9th largest economy in the world. With the way things are happening in the federal government and the fact that it's not representing the needs of the people, this is an opportunity for us to say, no, we're going to push back and say, no, we want to separate ourselves and we want to have self-determination. We want to determine how we will be governed because things have gotten out of control and it's not representing the people of Texas. So the most recent poll in Texas of likely voters said, if Texas were to reassert itself as an independent nation, 66% of likely voters would vote for Texas independence. We only need 50% plus one. So this is like Brexit. You've heard of that before, but this is Texit. And, we are supporting an organization that helps get that on the ballot. We are not affiliated with the official state of Texas in any way. We are actually the Texan token. It's not the Texas token, it's the Texan token. And we have literally adopted the brand that is known worldwide and literally providing the people of Texas and freedom-loving people across the world an opportunity to have an experience like the people within HEX, right? You think about HEX OGs, right? People having something that they can identify with. So our goal as a group is to tokenize communities. And the most important thing is that you have no coiners. You got to be able to get outside of crypto. And so there's 435,000 people in the Texas nationalist movement that can be a part of the Texan token, and then 30 million people across the state of Texas. And then there's all kinds of people across the world who believe in pushing back against globalists, authoritarians. And so the political wind is at our back. We've got the votes. It's just a matter of getting it on the ballot in November of 2023. And that's why we did the fundraising effort for the TNM, is to support their effort to promote Texas independence.
That's amazing, and I think this will help the cause a lot, bringing Texas independent forward, because now this can be a financial tool to fundraise, right, or to also just have the endowment be so big that you can now have power into the political system, right?
Right, and to make it really clear, the endowment, just like Richard says, Richard talks about everything as a narrative meme, right? It's a story that's being told. And so HEX isn't a certificate of deposit. HEX is like a certificate of deposit, right? You literally lock up your money for yield. The same thing with an endowment. You lock up your yield, but you have the ability to scrape off your interest for cash flow. And so the idea of an endowment is that you could endow your future. You could secure your future. And so those are the elements inside of a DeFi protocol that we literally are telling everyone about. To this point, we've had 1,836 donors who have given in crypto and in cash to the TNM. $1.5 million was given. And then on top of that, we have over 20,000 people who have free claimed in the last 30 days. And so that group of people is very strong and large. And we're excited about launching because this is the most important thing to be successful in a new crypto project, is having enough people in a community. And so Brandon and myself, we're just so thrilled that so many people are interested in being a part of this effort to birth a new nation.
I think one of the most important things, like you said, is community. And we have this airdrop here in 16 hours and 45 minutes. It is over, and everybody who has HEX Stakes, who sacrificed for PulseChain or sacrificed for PulseX, is eligible for 1 million Texas token, right? And you do that to have this community like in the boat right away, who maybe are not really interested in the liberty of Texas, but
Right.
just want to have this token. So let's talk about this a little bit. Why did you choose to give it to Hexicans, to PulseChain people, and to PulseX people?
Well, when I started the crypto heartbeat, I was not doing anything in crypto, right? I just started a channel because I had sacrificed for Pulse and I wanted to support Pulse, PulseChain. I wanted to support my own bags. I wanted to promote this. And I also created the Compassion Cartel because I wanted people. The one thing I didn't see in the community when I first came in was people my age, number one. And number two, I didn't see people who were talking about, we're talking about the PulseChain in the way I wanted to talk about the PulseChain. And so it really carved out a niche. I grew up extremely quickly as a channel. And of course, I think that, people kind of call me a crypto dad. And when people come up to me, they say, hey, my grandmother loves your channel. I think it's important for us in the community to be able to reach out to an older crowd. And that's been something that's been really exciting. And so the vision, though, what really drives me, it's not just the Texan token, right? This isn't just, there's a calling on my life to unlock generosity. And what that means is I believe that this world is abundant and that we're fighting over scarcity. And so in my opinion, people, crypto, true DeFi frees the captives from debt slavery. I met you, Abit. I went to that first Austin meetup, and I was so thankful. You guys were so kind and so gracious. I walk in the door and you're like, crypto heartbeat. And I was like, this is the greatest place to be. But what I realized is I met so many guys who were like 27, 28 years old, and they're like, yeah, I'm retired. And I'm like, what if the people of Texas, what if the people of the Philippines, what if people across the world that have been in bondage and slavery from debt of the system could have the experience like Abit and Patrick and all these people that are Hexicans? What if they could experience DeFi the same way OG Hexicans did? And I think about that and I go, that is true, a revolutionary idea. And so I wanted to tokenize those communities by bringing crypto to them versus saying, hey, you've got to come over here and you've got to like the same things I like. No. I recognize the most important thing is community and adoption, right? That's the most important thing. So why not take crypto into existing communities and tokenize those communities, give them a gift of DeFi. If they engage with an immutable contract, great, it can be beneficial to them. But if they don't, it doesn't have any value, because all we can do is give the gift of an immutable contract and tell the story. I can't force anyone to engage with it. But what we found is that's a really powerful idea, and it gives people additional personal sovereignty, and it's caught on. I mean, the Texas nationalist movement, people have embraced it. We've had 20,000 people so far, plus maybe 21,000 now who have claimed. And I look at it and I'm like, you asked the question, why Hexicans? Because Hexicans understand true DeFi. There's no other community in the entire, I wouldn't choose a single other community. Why? Because Richard Hart has trained people that not your keys, not your coins, right? They understand what it means to stake and hold and delay gratification. If you want to build long-term sustainability, that's the type of community that you want to have as a part of what you're doing. And so to me, helping Hexicans win is great. But what we're really trying to do is to onboard people who have never been in crypto before. And I was one of those people a couple of years ago. And so I understand what that feels like. I want them to have the same experience that I had and you had and others had, because I believe there's an abundance. It's not scarce.
Like you said, I believe also like there is an abundance in crypto, and that you are giving this free airdrop to the people, to the Hexicans, and to the people that sacrifice for freedom of speech, freedom of movement, and freedom of the assembly. I think that's a really, really good idea. And what we can do now is I add the screen share here. We can try to get to the airdrop, because it's open for 16 more hours, and all you have to do is just click up here at this button. And I'm already signed into the PulseChain testnet, and now you just click here on MetaMask, and it tells me right away that I am with this wallet not eligible. But if I would go into my other wallets where I had HEX Stakes or where I did my sacrifices, then I would be able to claim 1 million Texas token. And since this is free money, you mentioned Richard Hart. Richard Hart would definitely want you to collect your free money, because Bitcoin Cash was given free to Bitcoin people, right? Hex was given for free to Bitcoin people, and now you can free claim Texas token, because like you said, crypto is the community is the most important thing in crypto, and we have a community here right away. So I definitely see that even though Texas token will airdrop as a coin with zero valuation, it could have value in the future, right? Is it correct that it will airdrop with a zero evaluation, because PulseChain is not out yet?
Yeah.
So let's talk about what will happen in 16 hours when the airdrop is over.
Yep. So you make a really good point. This is not technically an airdrop, because an airdrop would be essentially you coming in and free claiming and receiving the tokens in your wallet. Because we don't have a layer 1, right? There's no PulseChain. So we can't airdrop through the PulseChain network because it's not live. So what we're doing is we're saying, if you want it, you come and check your eligibility, and we record that you want it. We record that in the database. And so when you come in with your MetaMask wallet, for example, like you just did, it will say if you're qualified or not. If you are, it will put you into the database. And when we launch on the Pulse chain, we will do the airdrop prior. That's the first thing we do. We launch the token and we do the airdrop. In the airdrop, we pay the gas for. So you're not paying the gas. This is not like a free claim where you have to pay the gas fee. But we do have to have the Pulse chain before we can do the airdrop. And so this is more of an eligibility for the airdrop, and you're saying you want it. And so that's what's going to end here in about 16 hours. But I will say this, I think it's really important for me to say, in light of all the things that are happening within the community, is that this is a no value token, like Abit said, but also it's not money. And I think it's really important for you to know that. You know, people talk about airdrop and free money. This is actually a no value token that's being given as a premium and a benefit to people who have sacrificed for Pulse, PulseX, or had active HEX stakes as of July 4th. That's all it is. It's a no value token. However, if you are somebody who used different wallets, let's say you used one wallet or account for your for HEX stakes, and then you used a different wallet for Pulse and a different wallet for PulseX sacrifice, you could have multiple accounts that are eligible. There was one person who had 15 HEX stakes in different accounts, and then had different wallets for Pulse and PulseX, and got 17 million Texan tokens. So it's important to recognize that it's not just one wallet, it's the wallets that you have used for those 3 different things, if they are unique. And so that's what's happening. That's what's going to be ending here in about 16, 17 hours.
So it's just to basically call on the blockchain, make a signature that you want to have the million Texas tokens. So I think everybody should do that. It's really easy to do. And basically, just by doing that, you already support Texas token, right? We want to see a lot of people free claiming and holding Texas token to then in the future, help the cause of Texas being libertarian to America. I think this is a pretty cool course. And now, obviously, you said that the Texas token is launching on PulseChain, and I bet you already know the question that I'm about to ask. So what do you think, when is PulseChain about to launch? Because now with the Texas token, the airdrop ending here, I think this will raise more and more interest when it comes to Texas token. And obviously, we want to have your opinion on when it could start.
Yeah, and that's, I know I have no insider information, and I've been hoping that it would launch a year ago. I will say this: the Texan token, we want to be on the Pulse chain. We believe that the Pulse chain, when you listen to Richard Hart and you understand the ecosystem and the vision that he has to build a vertically aligned ecosystem, and what that means is the layer 1, all of the projects that are on that layer 1, the decentralized exchange of PulseX, a wallet, fiat on-ramps and off-ramps, potentially a stable coin, and potentially a privacy token. What that means is, I believe that Richard Hart is the person in crypto. He is literally defending DeFi, true DeFi. And that, to me, is the most important thing of why we would be on the Pulse chain.
100%. And my opinion is, since I'm waiting for PulseChain as well, the million Pulse is my next big project, right? So this is my life. I'm waiting for PulseChain just so I can be on the road again, just like a Texas token is about to start only when PulseChain launches. So I'm thinking about March 2023. But as so many people in the Hex community say, it could totally already come out earlier, right? Like now it's the time where it could come out like every day, where I'm expecting Richard to say, hey, look, there is testnet v3, right? Then we have this for a couple of weeks, and then actually PulseChain will launch. It's not going to be too long anymore, and that's why I'm so excited for PulseChain.
Yeah, I think the key, right? I think the key is V3. When we actually see V3 launch, we have to relaunch on V3, and that's what every project has to do. And so once we see V3, he did say a couple weeks. I would say probably 4 weeks. there's a possibility we will see V3 by the end of the year. That would make, in my opinion, by the end of January, early February, we would see the PulseChain. But I've been wrong every time I've predicted anything. And so, we would love to see that. But I will say this, and this is important to note. We have a partner in the Texas nationalist movement, and their legislative session for the state of Texas starts in January. And there is pressure for us to launch. And I told them, if we don't have a PulseChain, we can't launch. And so if it continues and we don't have PulseChain launched in the right timeline, we're going to have to go out on Ethereum, and that creates other issues for us. But we'd get the copy on the PulseChain. But our desire is completely PulseChain all the way, because I believe it's going to be the sovereign alternative to the CBDCs, and I think that this is going to be. It's going to stand on its own as the place for freedom and sovereignty, and that's where I want the Texan token to be.
Before we dive a little bit more into the topic of earning interest with Texas token, I definitely want to jump into the depth a little bit more. Let me ask you this question here from Jim, and he's asking, if you're successful, would people of Texas have to denounce their U.S. citizenship? Would we have to get a passport to visit Texas?
Well, it's a great question. And if you think about any sovereign nation, one of the things that people don't recognize is the fact that independence movements have been significant over the years. I mean, there's at least been one a year on average. And if you look back into 1950, there was only 100 countries, and now there's 192, right? There's been about 100 new, countries that have been created, South Sudan being the most recent. And if you think about anyone who becomes a sovereign nation, especially if you've left a union, look at Brexit. You have to negotiate all kinds of things. But being a sovereign nation, yes, you'd have control of trade, you'd have control of citizenship. And I don't know that there's a denouncing in that scenario. I don't think there's a physical denouncing. And that's something that would get negotiated, because if you think about dual citizenship, where you were born, those type of things, that's a part of the negotiation process. And even if a vote happens in November of 2023, there's going to be at least 2 years of negotiation, because there's so many things to figure out. It's like a divorce, right? You're like, who gets the kids and who gets the china? And it's like, all right, we got to figure this thing out. But that's the thing I'm really hopeful for, because if you look at the political environment in the United States right now, obviously the Democrats, have two chambers, right? They've got the executive and they got the Senate, but the House has gone to the Republicans. And if you look at 2024, there's a very good chance that we're going to see a Republican president. In my opinion, Texas wants to negotiate these terms with a Republican president. And so we'll see how things go there. But everything that I see in the political environment says there's an opportunity here for Texas independence. But I'm not the one that decides, because what we're doing is separate from it. We're supporting this movement. But I want people to understand something. When you look at crypto and DeFi, you have to pick a horse to ride. If you're an investor or somebody that's a part of looking at contracts, one of the things I think is the most important, and Richard, this is a direct quote from Richard when I asked him, he said, the only thing you need to consider in crypto is it's a ratio between the people who know about it now and the people who will know about it in the future, right? Do you believe that the people, the story, the product has market fit, and that the people now will tell other people, and that it will grow, and the ratio of people who know about it now versus who will know about it in the future is greater? If in fact that ratio is greater, you have opportunity. And so what we see is the political environment is driving potential adoption, the news, potential international news, plus this core group of people, right? All the people who have been claimers and donors are that group of people that are at the core. And so our goal, an ultimate goal, is that there may be some utility for the Texan token if Texas becomes independent. But there's no promises. We can't plan that out, because we are separate from the state of Texas. We're just an endowment token on the blockchain. However, because of our relationship and because of what we're supporting, we believe that we have a bright future. But that's something that's, there's no promises. There's no forward-looking statements. This is just a free token that we're giving to people for free.
Exactly, and somebody obviously is already asking about the price. This is also my most interesting question, but obviously we do not know. Even if you put it out as the first person who gives the price for Texas token, right after this moment, people will start trading and the price will go up and the price will also go down. It goes in both directions. So right now is not the time to ask about the price. Right now, it's about to look for the free airdrop that is about to end in 16 hours and 30 minutes. And what I would like to do is we have to wait anyways. Right now, I made my signature that I want to have the million Texas token, and we wait for PulseChain for it to launch. There is a possibility, maybe we can talk about that a second, that it will launch on Ethereum in a certain point. Can we maybe point that out for a second before we go on to the next point?
Sure. So the Texas nationalist movement, I've been in a relationship with them and talking to them about fundraising for 2 years. I was a consultant with them about fundraising prior to this whole conversation. And how all this was created was they had really ambitious goals. And I was helping them with traditional fundraising. And I said, hey, I'm a part of this crypto community. And in this crypto community, this guy named Richard Hart raised $27 million for the Sens Foundation in about 90 days. And they were blown away by that. And I said, there's an opportunity if we can develop a token for the people of Texas, for freedom-loving people, that this could be a way in which if we raised money for you and they gave all of that money directly to you, you could raise a significant amount of money and be successful, hopefully, with your cause. They were very excited about that. And so that's how this really started. Well, things have changed since then. People were locked down from COVID. Their bank accounts were seized when they were helping somebody in Canada. In the Netherlands, the farmers are being shut out of their businesses. We've got all kinds of things happening with climate change. And people are seeing that, wow, we're not being represented. The needs of the people aren't being represented. How are we going to push back? And so this became this cause that was way more than crypto. But if you couple these two most important things, one, what if there's an abundance of resources in the hands of regular people? How would that change the political environment? And to me, it's so powerful because that's the promise of DeFi. It's not connected to the war machine. It's not connected to governments. It's outside of the control of central planners. And so to me, it's electrifying because people are like, hold on a second, we've got a chance. And so, Abe, you may or may not know this, but our next project is doing the same thing in the Philippines. And it's with literally a community of people within the Philippines. And so our goal is to tokenize communities across the world who want freedom and sovereignty and who want to have a chance. I believe that if we're going to unlock generosity, we need to make sure that people have the resources to be generous with. And so that's why we're giving this gift of these decentralized tokens. But at the end of the day, it's all about adoption, and tokenomics help things, but they don't. You could have great tokenomics, but if you don't have any users and you don't have anybody who is buying and holding, you've got nothing.
And I want to look into the tokenomics a little bit right now. We have this tokenomics field here. It says PRC20 token because it will launch on PulseChain. We see here the 5% annual base interest rate, 87% annual maximum interest rate. We will look into that in a second, how the curve of the yield is. And what we see here, the tokenomics, there are a lot of similarities when it comes to HEX. There's a locking up mechanism, for example. As longer you lock up, as more interest you earn. But the interest comes a little bit from a different place, right? It's not like in HEX where it inflates and the inflation goes to the staker class. Can you, Harpreet, talk a little bit about where does the yield come from in Texas token?
Yeah, so in the Texan token, one of the things that you'll see is Richard Hart, he has told us many, many times, the number one bug in DeFi is inflation bugs. And we said, we are not going to have any inflation so that we don't have an inflation bug. So in order to do that, you have to have essentially at the beginning a fixed supply. And so what we've started with is 100 trillion tokens, but 97% of those are locked in the contract. So they're literally 100 trillion tokens, but 97 trillion of those are locked in the contract. So an analogy for this is it's like a gold mine that has a fixed amount of gold in it. And when you come and you stake your Texan tokens, it reserves all of the potential interest. Our maximum stake length is 22 years. And so if you were to stake for 22 years and never scrape interest, that would be an average of 87% annually. But in year 22, the total is 1,881% of yield. But that's how much you would reserve if you waited 22 years. The base rate is 5%, and it grows from there. And so this is a very similar in the way it functions, but different in the way that it receives its yield, because the yield is actually fixed from the beginning and it deflates from there, rather than starting at a smaller amount and inflating indefinitely. So there's a point in the future where this will be done. There will be no more staking, just like with Bitcoin. Bitcoin, once the mining is done, it's over. There's no more mining. And so this is what we would consider to be a proof of stake mine, where you stake and that time that you're willing to wait determines how much yield that you would receive.
And it's great that you do it like this, because Hex does it in the other way, where it looks at all the participants, and then on those participants, it calculates a T-share price, right? And this now needs a lot of computation power. And this is also the reason why we cannot make forward-looking predictions in Hex when it comes to the T-share and when it comes to how much you will earn. And Texas Token has solved this by giving out the yield in a little bit different way. You already said you have 100 trillion tokens, right? And yes. This then is distributed to the people. And here, when you go to the app, you can already make like a test stake on the testnet, right? And if I put in my free claim of 1 million Texas token, I can click, for example, for 1 year and stake for 1 year, and I see right away how much return of Texas token I would get. Can you talk a little bit?
Yeah, and the reason you can see it there, Abit, is because one of the things we learned from Hex was the fact that, each day that goes by, there's a T-share rate. And the reason it's so expensive to end a stake after a long period of time is because it has to recurse through all those days and all of those penalties. And we said, what if we were to say it's a fixed interest rate and we put that table of interest in the contract? You don't factor it. You actually put it in the contract. So that means that if you were to end a 22-year stake, you would only recurse through years, not through days. So that would lower the gas fee. But also you could predict, if I were to wait this period of time, here's the yield that would come from Texan tokens and the amount of time that you waited. So this is just doing a simple math problem that's embedded in the contract versus something that's variable by day.
And the great thing is we have a running smart contract. It's not running yet, but it will be a running smart contract that you can utilize to make yield on your crypto, right? You have the Texas token. You could put in, just like in Hex, your amount of Texas token, and then also the amount of days that you want to be staked. And I already clicked on 22 years, for example, to get the maximum yield. And this is a little bit different than Hex because it's a longer staking period, right?
Right.
And nowadays, nobody really wants to stake and wait for that long of a time. That's why we have all those derivatives. How does Texas token solve the problem of being staked, but still have some liquidity on hand if needed?
Yeah, so it's what's called scraping. And so there's a function that any time that you want to scrape the interest that you've earned up until that point, you can pull that interest. However, it puts your stake day back to day one. Okay, so all you can do is, if you've earned, let's say you set up a 22-year stake and you made it through 5 years, and you're like, oh, I got into a financial issue, I need to scrape off my 5 years of interest. You could scrape that off. It would go into your wallet at zero penalty, but you'd be reset to day one. So what we've done in the contract is we've separated out your principal stake from your scraping of interest. And so interest and principal are separated. And so what that enables you to do is to have the flexibility to to basically draw off cash flow if you want it. So many of the organizations in the nonprofit space, they want to at least get 5% on their money. And that's why our base rate is 5%. And our goal is, and our hope is, that institutions who want to receive at least 5% would see this smart contract as an opportunity for them to achieve the yield that they want. And that's why it's 5%. And so, it's a very simple way to do it, but it's also a very efficient way. And I think it gives flexibility, because you won't see derivatives or many derivatives being built on the Texan token. And the reason is because it has that flexibility of scraping your interest at no penalty.
That's a really, really interesting point, because, like you said in the beginning, all crypto is a narrative. So, because it's hard to say what is better, Hex or Texas token. I would never say it like this or view it at this point. I would always see it as a financial tool that you can utilize to use to get financial freedom, right? And this is why we on Kryptosparbuch or KSB TV nowadays, we talk about how to make decentralized interest with Hex, but also utilize perpetuals, utilize the HSI staking, and things like Texas token, for example. So the scraping is something that we do not have in Hex, and it solves a great problem with having liquidity if you want it. And with that being said, like, you can choose of making a 1-year stake or a 22-year year stake, and a 22-year stake pays out so much more Texas token. And do you think it makes sense to only make 22-year stakes and then always scrape? Is that like the ultimate game that you can play in Texas token?
Well, because you have unlimited stakes, right? Just like with Hex, you can make as many stakes as you want. I think people will use it differently based on the situation that they're in. So, for example, the reason we did 22 years is because it's a generation, right? 20 years is essentially a full generation. And so I think about grandkids. I don't have any grandkids now, but at some point I might. And if I look at how you think about kids in the future, what if I had a grandkid and I said, I'm going to stake $1,000 for 22 years. Well, what's that? Or 18 years, right? When a child graduates high school or something, that's something that would be what I would be thinking about. I'd be thinking about that child when I did it. But I think that there are different people with different needs. And so the contract enables you to have unlimited stakes, and then you can choose the stake length. The thing that scraping allows is, I think, as well as I do, that the only thing that matters when it comes to crypto is buying and holding. And so the narrative has to support people saying, you know what, I'm going to lock these up to get this interest. There's a gold mine here, and I want to reserve my portion of it. But we also know that sometimes things change and sometimes the market goes down. And so you want to have that flexibility to be able to pull it off if you want, without kind of nuking your principal stake, because there are penalties to doing that. But I think that, because you have the flexibility, there's different people who use it different ways. I think there's a lot of people who would be happy with 5%. And that's great. They have a hard time getting that in current, vehicles. But then there are other people who say, you know what, I'm going to do kind of a scraping ladder. And what I'll do is I'll do 22-year stakes, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to scrape at different times. And so, there's a lot of options that this provides, and it's really a matter of what your personal situation is and how you'd want to utilize the smart contract.
And then we have one point here that is totally different from Hex. It's not an inflationary coin, it's a deflationary coin. And it's getting the deflationary aspect from people being penalized. Can we talk a little bit about the penalizing aspect? Because in Hex, it's such a great tool, right?
Yep.
It saves people from themselves doing wrong things, because if they do this one thing and end stake way too early, they lose a lot of selling power, right? So the truth engine is really something here. Can you go into the penalty structure of Texas token?
Sure. The Texan token, what happens is, let's say you make a 22-year stake. If you have not served up to 50% of that, it's going to take 50% of your principal. Okay, so you're penalized significantly. So let's say you set up for 22 years and you don't fulfill that. You emergency end stake your principal under essentially 50% of the time served. You're going to lose half your money. However, if you make it through and you get into 60% and 70%, you only are essentially losing the portion that you didn't serve. So it's not as harsh of a penalty as hex is. However, that's why scraping is so, I think, so attractive, is that you have the ability to pull this ripcord if you get into a problem. So I think it drives people to stake longer because they have this option of not having to create essentially staking ladders. And that's what we're seeing a lot of people. Those that are in Hex who are retired have staking ladders because they had to set it up because they need cash flow. And we saw that as an issue. We said, you know what if people could get cash flow without having to kind of do these monthly stakes and have to set up their money to come out at a certain time? And so um, it is deflationary because of those penalties, but we think that the scraping function minimizes the amount of penalties that are going to be paid. However, if a penalty is incurred, it literally does not get minted back. And so it deflates the total supply.
And it deflates the total supply, and those tokens that are burned, they are not coming back. They're never to be seen, and that's the great thing. That's why Texas token is deflationary, and all you have to do is basically just wait. And already from this aspect, the coin gets more valuable because there are less and less and less in the future. And obviously, what I like is that a long-term vision of the coin with 22 years, like you said, one generation. And then you have this scraping tool that you can then use this big stake that you make for 22 years, for example, then to just scrape off. And you also mentioned the strategy of making multiple stakes and then scrape at different times, right? So it's totally a really individual play.
Do you mind showing? So if you go to the Texan.cc website and you click on the white paper, which is that center one, and then scroll to the bottom of that. So at the bottom, there's actually a table, and this is the table of interest. And so the yield curve increases with time. And so you'll notice that in year one, it's 5%. And each year, obviously, it increases from there. Well, year two is 6, and then year three is 8. But if you go all the way to 22 years, that last year, if you held in that year, that's 236% in just that year. The total is 1,881% for a full 22-year stake. And so I think that people, rather than creating one stake, are going to create a lot of them. They're going to say, you know what, this one's for this child, and this one's for this relative, or this one's for this purpose. And then they'll have, different amounts that they'll utilize for basically the 5%, right? They want that 5% yield. But the cool thing about this is when you stake, you actually burn your tokens, and we burn all potential interest right from the beginning. Why? Because it needs to be held for you in the contract based on what you said you were going to do. When you do scrape, it recalculates that total amount, but it always reserves it for you. So you'll never be in a situation where, staking has ended because everything has been burned out of the treasury and now there's nothing for you. Well, that's not true in this case because it always reserves it for you. But that means those tokens are out of supply. And so when you do come back to end your stake, when you finished out your 5-year, 10-year, 22-year stake, you literally mint back your own rewards, really just like Hex does, because you're doing the work in this contract. It is not, we don't have any admin keys. We don't do any of the work. You engage with the contract, and it's just you and the contract.
And this is exactly the main point of Hex. You do your own work. There's nobody doing work for you, right? So actually a really good tool that you can utilize in the future when you now free claim your Texas token to make more interest with your crypto. I think that's a really, really cool idea. I'm on board with Texas token. Crypto Heartbeat, thank you so much for doing this with us today. And we have explored Texas token today a lot, I think. We have talked about the free claim. We've talked about community, about the cause of Texas token. We went a little bit into the staking mechanism here and looked at the 22-year stake. And what is really interesting for me is the scraping mechanism, something that we do not have in Hex, for example, and that really utilizes a big value here. Crypto Heartbeat, is there something that we definitely need to look on as well? for example, I have maybe the about section that shows the team, and it shows you, it says also Brandon, and those two other people that I've not seen yet. Can you maybe talk about the team behind Texas Token and also a little bit?
Sure. Our lead dev is Ray Rostelli. He and I have been best friends for 20 years. And so the beauty of that is I know him extremely well. And it's not like we hired a dev that we don't know. No, he's been a friend of mine, and he has literally volunteered his time as, you know, my best friend over the last 20 years. So I trust him with my life and with my children. Ryan Hungate is my first friend in Hex. I came into the Hex chat in the very first days, and I was asking some tough questions of the people in the Telegram, and he pulled me aside, and he was my first friend. Well, he happens to be a senior level dev for a company that everyone would know the name of. And so he is a rock star. And so these two guys are the core team, but then we've got a much larger team of people who have volunteered, who are in Telegram, who are helping us. And that's something that I'm extremely thankful for. But we're the core four in the senior team. And then we've got our leader, which you probably have seen David Lee around if you watched any of Crypto Heartbeat. He runs our Telegram. And then we've got a whole team of people behind it. But this is the core upfront folks. And, you know, Brandon from Rags to Riches is well known in the community as well.
And when you go down here, you have all your social media handles from Crypto Heartbeat, from also Rags to Riches, and also from the devs if you are interested in that. You will see a Telegram group here, Twitter, and also the audit and white paper. Those are the two things that I always say you have to read before you actually invest. And then now there's so much more time to wait when it comes to Texas Token, because it all depends on PulseChain to come out. So I think you should really look into the testnet here. Make sure you have understood the system, and maybe even start out with a strategy at what you might think you could do with the stake and how it could help you to gain financial freedom in the future.
And one of the things I would encourage people to do is that if you're somebody who has, you or someone who sacrificed for Pulse or PulseX, if you go into the testnet, you're going to have Test Pulse and you're going to have Test Pulse PLSX. You can trade those on PulseX for Texan, and you can stake, and you can literally try out the D app right now. And it's been up on the testnet since the beginning. I'd encourage you to look at the contract code, look at the CertiK audit. I mean, we spent $33,000 getting the CertiK audit done on security. We went through multiple rounds of changes with them. And so it's important, I think, to understand. But I also say this is not an investment. And that's really important for me to say. This is a gift. You're not investing in anything because you can't buy anything. You cannot put any money into the Texan token. The Texan token actually doesn't exist right now. We're giving it away for free. And we want the people who understand crypto the most to be the ones who have it. And so there is nothing to invest in. We're not offering any investment opportunity. This is a free token. And if the people who hold that token want to make value out of it, they can. But that's not up to us. We're just putting software on the internet. It's important for me to say that, because we don't, we're software developers, and we're a team of friends who want to do something to help Texas independence. The people that are a part of this, it's a completely decentralized product that is immutable. And once it's out on the chain, we can't touch it. And so if the people of the Texas Nationalist Movement, freedom-loving people across the world, people that are in Hex and Pulse and PulseX, they want to take advantage of it, they can. But I'm under no preconceived notions that this is going to be successful or not. It's a matter of does this fit the goals of the people that are in the community? And so we're doing everything we can to build that community and give that gift, but that's all we can do, because this is a no value token.
Matt, I'm so happy to be on your side when it comes to Texas Token. I will look at this project really, really carefully when it comes out, because I am now one of the person that free claimed their Texas Token. I can proudly say that. Thanks for giving us this unbelievable opportunity. And you are saying it all the time, to unlock generosity. By just participating, you already helped the cause of Texas Token. So I want to encourage everybody to go out there and get your free claim and read everything about Texas token, because it's a really interesting project. Is there something that you want to say to our viewers before we end our stream today?
Now, one, I just want to thank you. I mean, what you did with the Sparbuch tour, the 555 tour, and going all around. I mean, if it wasn't for you guys, the community is so important, and I talk about this every day on my stream. The thing that has bonded me together with the Hexican community and got to meet so many of the great people is because you enabled us to get together. One of the greatest experiences was going to Austin and meeting you guys, then going into Vegas multiple times. And if it wasn't for people like you who are willing to travel, willing to get out there, because there is nothing like meeting Hexicans in person. It's very different than seeing people online. And to me, that's where the value is, because I got to meet David Lee, and my dad passed away in March, and he traveled 7.5 hours to come to my dad's funeral. And to have a guy that I didn't really know very well, who cared enough about me to know that I was struggling, and he came to my dad's funeral, that to me, that's the differentiation of the Hexican community. It's people who care about people. But if it wasn't for you, Abit and Patrick and others and KSB TV, if you guys wouldn't do these events, we wouldn't have the opportunity to build relationships that are like meaningful, like real friendships. And as an adult, it's hard to meet and to bond with people. And to think that we did that over crypto is unbelievable. But to you deserve a lot of credit for that, because there's a lot of work that goes into it. So I appreciate the opportunity. I appreciate the support, and we're just excited. We want to win together, and that's the only way, that's the only way we can in DeFi. And so thanks so much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Matt. Yes, well, I have found the generosity, how do you say it?
Unlocking generosity, yeah.
I have found this abundance in crypto, and I want to share that as well. That's drives me every single day to bring this amazing information to the people so they can be financially free as well. That's that's something that I've put on my flags that I want to do every single day. So we had this amazing live stream, and we have looked at Texas token, we looked at the free claim, we looked at using it as a financial tool to gain your financial freedom in the future. I think you should definitely look it up. Leave a like and subscribe for the YouTube video. I want to thank everybody in the chat, and we will see us in a couple of days. Crypto Heartbeat, thanks for doing this.
Thanks, man.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.